Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to do a timing chain setup on a 2014 Chevy Equinox with a 2.44 cylinder. This is non-turboed, all that lovely jazz, so you don't have to really worry about it. When you start looking at this and you start thinking to yourself, oh God, timing chains, you think the worst. But these ones are actually really simple. So I'm going to take you through step by step on how to do this. So stick around and keep watching. Okay, so first thing you want to do when you get into these is you're going to release the clip here for your mass airflow sensor. Just push that tab up, push in and pull up. If you have to, you can take and push down, then push in on the little tab here and then pull out. But get that done. And then down here on the bottom where it goes into the throttle body, there's a clamp. You're going to take a flathead screwdriver, you're going to loosen that clamp. That way you can loosen the intake air box assembly. Oh, come on. This is why I hate flathead or standard, because they always end up slipping. Okay, so you get that done, and you come over here. Be careful, don't pull too hard, because you could break it, but just take it, grab it, wiggle it a little bit, and then pop it out. You take that out of the side. Now you can undo that. The wiring will be off to the side. You've got two 10 millimeters right here, and that should be it. Yes, that's it on this one. So you've got two 10 millimeters right there. Just undo those, and then the whole entire box assembly will come right out. I'm gonna go ahead and get those out and get the box out. Okay, so once you have the air box, intake assembly, all that out of the way, which really it's all considered an air box. So anyways, once you get that off, you're going to pull the cover. And to pull the cover, of course I'm not paying attention. All you have to do is just undo the oil cap, pull up on everything, and it'll come right out. Now you have this. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to undo each one of your coil packs, which with these style clips, easiest way I've found to do this, take a flathead screwdriver, stick it right in there, and boop, you just work it side to side. And they will come out. Some of them are a little bit more stuck in there than others, but you can go through and you'll pop all four of those out. Once you get all four of those undone, same thing as anything else, just push down on the tab, pull back, there you go. Right here you have your VVT solenoids. You are going to, same thing, pull the clip up, squeeze, pull. There is no reason to pull these because the valve cover sits around it, so you'll be able to leave these here. You will have to unplug this, obviously. Unplug the connectors, and then leave the solenoids in there. Each one of these coil packs has a 10 millimeter on it, so you can go through and do all that. I'm gonna go ahead and pull all the coil packs out, get them out of the way, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so after you get all your coil packs out, set everything off to the side, you are going to take this vent tube from here all the way over to the purge solenoid. On the front here, there is a little push clip that goes up. Grab that, pull back. So it basically pushes up to release. So you'll push up. Sometimes it'll stay, sometimes it won't. You'll have to fight with it, but it should come right off. Anyways, you got the same thing over here on the side, which it is a bit of a pain to get to, just like you can see. So pretty much push in on it and scream at it, yell at it, call it names, just like everybody wants to. And then it releases. So once it releases, you're not going to be able to just pull it right straight out of there. You've got to push it in between the top of the, or in between the valve cover and the solenoid itself. You're going to go in there. Good Lord. Just like that. Then you can grab hold of it. Oh, come on, it's gonna prove me wrong. Just because I said something. Okay, well, anyways, there it is. Get that out of there. And then, next thing you're gonna do is, you're gonna go ahead and, I generally don't disconnect the fuel line, but in this instance, it'd probably be easier. But if you can't disconnect it or you don't have the disconnect tool, then I wouldn't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's not going to be in your way. So, but you do have on this bracket, there's a 10mm bolt right there that holds this bracket on. So you can either pull this out of your way or undo that 10mm right there. Then you come over here and there's a 10mm right there. So like I said, you don't have to take it off, but it helps. So after you get that done, then we're going to go around and we're going to undo all the bolts on the valve cover. Now be careful, because behind this plate right here there is a bolt. So there's one hiding down in here. I would recommend go ahead and taking this plate off, because if you don't, when you go back to put it together, it's going to be a pain in the butt. So, take your plate off, undo all your bolts around the valve cover. Valve covers do have pry points, so that way you don't break anything. There's one right here, obviously. There's ones right here. They're all around it. You just got to look for them. But, I'll go ahead and get the fuel line out of my way, and then I'll get the bolts out of the valve cover. Everything's 10s. 10s, 13s, and 15s are your biggest uses on Chevys, Fords, the newer ones. So, Toyotas and Nissans are all 12s and 14s. So, but I'll get the valve cover off, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so once you get your valve cover off, this is what you're left with, where you can see your whole top end right there. One recommendation, take all your coil plugs, stick them back behind here. Just tuck everything back in so it's away from the area and all that. Couple things that go bad on these. Biggest reason things go bad on these with the timing setup and all that is because people don't pay attention to changing their oil as frequently as they should. These run on a VVT system. The VVT system is considered a variable valve timing setup. So that means that oil pressure is applied through the solenoid to the actuators, which allows the timing to adjust when it needs to, depending on the oil pressure. So if those are stuck or those are clogged up because the oil hasn't been changed as frequently as possible, then that right there is going to cause you problems. Second thing is these timing pieces right here. This cover, the guide that goes along the top, breaks all the time. They're super easy to change. You can get them pretty much anywhere. All that is just 10 millimeter and another 10 millimeter over there. So pop those out, but you've also got your actuators will go bad. I mean, anything can go bad, but the biggest things that I have seen is these will come apart and they'll break. There's also another style that sits in here that breaks. The guides on this side down in the bottom will actually snap the pin. I'll grab my flashlight and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so just as I had thought, the guide on this side is broke. I don't know if you can see it down in there. Not very easy for me to do this with the confined spaces, but it is broke, the guide on this side. Generally what happens is it'll either break the bolt, or it'll break the guide itself. So they do make a repair kit to where they integrate the plug right there, that plug right there, into the retainer pin. So it screws in here and pushes through into the guide and allows for the same operation as the bolt being in there. So just so you guys know, they do make kits for almost everything to repair. So even that annoying exhaust leak that you get on the 5.7s, 5.3s, so they make kits for those. But so what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna raise this up. I'm going to drain the coolant and the oil, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so since I'm already raising it up, one thing you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to take the tire off, just the passenger side tire, and then there is a inner fender well piece right there that we'll have to take out too. So these are 22s, 21s, 22s, depending on what year you have. I'm gonna go ahead and zip those off, pull the tire off, and then we'll get that inner shield out. Okay, so once you get the tire off, they are 22s. Some of them will swell, just FYI. Come on, a little bit. Oh, for God's sakes. Yep, right there, like that. They will swell like that. Just take a hammer, give her a couple of taps on there, and the socket will stick far enough to where you can get it off of there. So you've got one tab here. One tab here. And then another tab right here. Oh, sorry, right there. So you can get these 3 tabs out. and then yep, falls right off. So now you're able to get in here and you can access the crank pulley. I'm gonna get this picked up real quick and then we'll get it raised up a little bit more. Okay, so now that you have it raised up, you've got a better view of the underside, which if you're doing this on the ground, then you know, you got to do what you got to do. So, but you've got your tensioner pulley right there. That'll take a 3/8 ratchet and you're going to push up towards the top. Then you can remove the belt. Pay attention to where your belt is, because it'll be a whole lot easier going back, but it's pretty obvious around the crank, around the get out of here, you stupid spider web. Around the crank, around the AC, around your alternator, and then back down around the tensioner. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna blow off all this, and then we'll get the belt off, and then we'll go to draining the oil and the coolant. So I'll be right back. Alright, so get your drain pan over here, or if you're on the ground, get your drain pan under it. This is going to be a 15. Some years I tighten it so that way it'll break that bond, and then I'll loosen it. But some years do have, get my drain pan under here, 13s, some years have 16s. I mean, it just depends on what year you've got. So, that out, set that off to the side, let this puppy drain, and while that's draining, I'm gonna wipe my hand off, and then we will grab a 3/8. Get up in here. Come on. Okay, well, I'm gonna get the deal on there, the ratchet on there. Okay, so once you get the belt off, you're left with just the two things that are on the case itself. On the main crank pulley, there's a notch. You'll have to feel around for it. That is your alignment mark, which I don't know if you can see it or not. Mine's right there. And then further up, I'll have to get a light on it, but right here, there's a notch. Okay, so I got a light on it. Hopefully you can see it a little better. There's the notch right there. That is your top dead center notch. You'll line that notch up with the notch from earlier, which is, God, where'd you go? Oh, right, where are you at? Right there. So it's just a small indentation on the side of the crank pulley. So you're just going to spin this around to where that meets up. But of course, there's a lot of them out there that'll say, you know, oh, well, you got to have it this way, you got to have it that way. With these, as long as you get that mark lined up with the other mark, then you're okay. So oil's drained. What we're going to do now is obviously put your plug back in. Do not forget to tighten it down. And don't over tighten it, because you will strip it real quick, real easy. But you do not have to drain the cooling system on this. It does not have any water jackets or anything that go through the front timing cover, anything like that. So ixnay on the drain A. Of course, I'll admit when I screwed up. So yes, I screwed up. I told you wrong. This one doesn't have drain ports or anything, or water jackets or anything like that to go through the timing cover. Some might, so I'm just letting you know there is a possibility that it could, which only thing it's going to do is just drain the water everywhere. So, but okay, so now that we got it down a little bit, we're going to get our timing marks lined up so that way we can pull the chain and all that out. I do want to point out one thing, and pay attention to this because this will determine whether your vehicle is in time correctly or not. If the vehicle is equipped with the LAP, LE8, LEA, or LUK, or the 2011 LAF, you have to make sure that your notches in the cams right here and here are in the 10 o'clock position for the intake and 7 o'clock for the exhaust. The way you can find that out on what your engine is, on what type you have, you can come around here, and on the lift it's not very easy because you have to squeeze in here, but in your glove box you have your accessory tag right here. You're going to look to make sure that you don't have any of those numbers, or if you do have those numbers, then you have to make sure that your cams are lined up with those. So I will, let's see, there we go, and then I'll turn that on. There we go. So this one has an LEA, so that means that I have to line my timing marks up with everything that we had talked about. But as you can see right there, it says LEA. So now that we have that figured out, I'm going to jump back out and we'll come around and find out what we need and where to go, where our timing marks need to be, everything like that. But when you put your chain on, your bottom link, your single link that's away from everything else, is going to line up with this point here. This will be the keyway that faces 12 o'clock on the entire engine. So the keyway here will line up with the 12 o'clock position with the top of the engine. This is going to face at the 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock position. So once you get that done, then all of your timing lobes will have, or your actuators will have triangles on them like this. And I will show you real quick. Boop. I had to switch lenses. Right there. There's a timing mark, and there's the other timing mark, which on the new chains you will have colored links. So you'll get those lined up with these timing marks here. And then the other colored link will go down on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is because... Oh, back out. Turn that off. There we go. Okay. Alright, now that I got it all straightened out. I'm going to raise it up, match up my timing mark on the crank with the one on the case, or the front cover, and then I'm going to take the crank pulley out, we'll get the front cover undone, and then move on. Okay, so I know it's a little difficult to see, it's a little blurry, but there is where your timing mark lines up with the timing notch on the crankshaft. So I just figured I'd show you guys so that way you see. And now I'm going to get everything tore apart. Okay, so we got the tensioner, or the crank pulley, out of the way. 22 millimeter, zip it off, and then it should wiggle its way off of there. So after I did that, I went ahead and marked so it's easier to see the timing mark on there. I also did the same thing on the crank pulley itself right there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take the tensioner off. That is a 13, I believe. I'll find out. I'll put it up here somewhere. The rest of them are 10s. You have 113 here, and then the 113 there, and the rest of these around the outside of the case are 10s. Do not pull this cover off. You do not have to pull this cover off. So we'll get the tensioner out of the way, we'll get the rest of the bolts out of there, and then we'll go from there. Okay, sorry for the loudness, had to turn the fan on, it's hot. Now that you have your bolts out from around the outside, you got the tensioner off, all that. This one here was actually a 15, and this one is a 13. So all the rest of them are short 10 millimeter. That one's a long 13, and this one's a long 15. So once you get all that done, then you're going to pry the case off. You've got multiple pry points. There's one right here, which I use all the time, and then of course you've got one up there. There are alignment pins on these. There is one right there, and then on this side there is one right there. So try to pry those areas or close to those areas first, so that way you can get that that bond broke. And make sure you put a pan below, because it will start dripping oil everywhere. So I'm going to get this cover off, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so once you get the cover off, the gasket and everything will stay on, and it's going to be hooked up in between here with one of the pieces of metal for it. All you have to do is reach up there with a pair of cutters or snips and just clip it. And the thing is, when I go back together, I don't even put that in there. I cut it on both sides, so that way there's nothing there, and that way you don't have to mess with taking the main front mount off up there. You don't have to take that off and fight with that. So this is the easiest way to do it for me, is I just cut that, and then when I go to put the new one back in, I'll cut it too. So now that you got that out, we're going to double check and make sure that the marks are correct on where they need to be. And you can already tell just by the flop in the chain that this one's pretty well done for. And when I pulled the cover off, there was also pieces of that guide that came out. So but I'm going to lower it down a little bit and make sure that my marks are still lined up, and then we will jump into undoing the guide and the tensioner and all that for that side. So okay, so once you get your timing marks lined up, you make sure that everything looks good. You've got your main timing mark down there, and then you've got your timing marks up here. On the front here, each one of them are going to face to the, or this one's going to face to the 1 o'clock or the 2 o'clock position. Yeah, you got to think of it this way. That's straight, so it's going to face to the 2 o'clock position. This one, which you can't see, get it back to that, put that on. This one is going to face to the 11 o'clock position. So once you get those done and you make sure that they're lined up, you get your timing mark down there lined up, then I usually take and put a set of vice grips on each one of the cams just to kind of hold it so it doesn't jump around. Then you can take your tensioner out. Your tensioner is going to be back in here, right there. That is just in the corner of this head. Oh, get in there. There we go. Alright, so that's where your tensioner is going to sit. Your tensioner looks like this. That's your tensioner. So, it is a 1.25" bolt head, and they are a pain to get out of there. Sometimes. Other times you should be able to get them out no problem, but the ones that I've always done, because we live in the middle of the freaking United States, so we get taste of everything. Get that out, and then put your vice grip, or put your vice grips on first, or somehow to hold these cams in place, and then take your tensioner out. Then we're going to go down below and we're going to loosen up the chain guide for this side, and we're going to loosen the guide for that side. So those are two 10mm bolts on each guide. All you have to do is look right here, and you can see that guide right there. That one right there. There's your 10mm you're going to take out, and then on this side, this is the tensioner guide. You're going to take that 10mm out. You're going to set both of those off to the side. So we'll get that done real quick, and then we'll come back. Just a quick point: when you go to take this side tension or this side guide out, you won't be able to completely pull it out, because in the side here there is that cap. That's a Allen head cap. So when I go to take that out, I'll show you what size it is, but there's a 10mm bolt behind that that holds the guide in. So you get the ones on the bottom done first, and then you'll move up here and we'll take that one out. Then we can start taking the fronts of the actuator, or the actuator bolts out, and disassemble the front setup. So okay, so once you get your 10 undone, this right side guide will come down through the bottom. The left side tensioner guide will not. That one has to come up through the top and be fed down through the top. So that's what your guide looks like. You have your bottom bolt and then the top bolt. So now on the top here, where I told you that. Alright, so that plug right there is a 10mm hex head, Allen head, whichever. Right behind that is a 10mm for the top of that guide. You take that guide out, you'll have to have a magnet to be able to get the 10mm out, unless it sticks to your socket somehow. But don't drop it, because it'll go all the way down to the bottom and fall right into that tiny little hole right there, down into the oil pan. Then you gotta go fishing. So we're gonna go ahead and undo the actuators, and then I will show you how to pull everything and keep track of where everything goes. Okay, so both of those are 18s on the front here, 18mm bolts. Take those out, set them over here in your lovely tray, so that way nothing gets mixed up and lost and whatnot. Do that with both of them. Okay, there. Set them right there. Now, when you remove these, you need to pay attention. So we're going to pull. Come on. There we go. There is the intake. Now, with these on the back sides, there's adapter or alignment pins right there where my middle finger is. There's an adapter pin. You have to make sure that when you put this back together that you get that locked in there nice and tight in the alignment slot, or else it will cause severe problems. So there's our exhaust, and then we'll go ahead and take the chain, set it off to the side, and pop off. Come on. Our intake. Okay, same thing. Some of these, if you get newer ones, some of them will be labeled intake exhaust, some won't. But basically, now that you've got those actuators out, you do have to be careful, because in the center there is a section that the chain will get caught on, and it has to go around that to be able to put back in. So what you're going to do is, this is kind of difficult to do with only oh, I'm caught on, that's what it is. Okay. Duh. I still have to take it off the bottom. So there's that. Pull that around. So now you got that. And oh, of course. Now it's gone all the way down to the bottom. So anyways, there you go. Now your chain's out. So set that right there. Throw it in the trash, whatever you want to do. It don't matter. Now you can pull your guide out, or your tensioner guide, through the top. So there's that part. I'm going to make another video, so that way this one's not so long. I'm going to make another video on the installation and remarking, resetting, all that. So go to my channel, follow my next video, like and subscribe, and thank you guys for all the support.